we wanted to talk a little bit about, we talked about how to prep kids for Halloween and how to work on things and give them more opportunities, but then it becomes the night of, and you got to deal with what is at that point. And sometimes what is not what you had hoped. So
exactly.
What do we do?
Well,
Help us.
Like we mentioned earlier, you want to move at your child's pace. So not rush him through, not necessarily try to keep him up with his friends. Of course, that's important. But move at your child's pace and what your child is comfortable with as well. But if something does go wrong, let's say that your child starts taking off the costume, doesn't want to wear it anymore. In a way, you need to be a little flexible with this.
Okay.
You know, it's not necessary that that he keeps his costume on at all times, and that would be part of practicing as well, and moving him to an amount of time that's comfortable for him to keep it on. But also, if he starts taking parts of the costume off, the mask or whatnot, it's not the end of the world.
It isn't.
It's not the end of the world, and really, even socially, it's not that big of a deal. Costumes always get irritating for everybody, and at some point, they will take them off. And if this is your child's first Halloween, you can expect this.
Okay.
So that's fine. Just being flexible in this situation is good. Also, you want to set up contingencies ahead of time.
Okay.
And plan for things to go wrong.
Okay.
So before you go out, plan to have something for your child that will be more entertaining than maybe going to the houses. So if a Game Boy or something, maybe his favorite toy or some kind of iPad or whatever it is, maybe bring that along. So if he's able to go to 3 houses on his own and trick or treat and do everything right, then maybe he can play with the iPad for 2 minutes.
Okay.
So set up these situations so that the behavior you want is being reinforced by his preferred item.
Okay. It sounds like to me, too, what I'm hearing is that we have to alter our expectations in both ways. That if we're, just like we do with anything else, we need to figure out what's our target for the night, what's the behavior, what's the expectation that's realistic, which means downgrading all of that holiday nonsense that we can participate in.
Exactly.
So we have this dream, oh, I'm going to go trick-or-treating with my child, they're going to be in their costume, they're going to be happy, they're going to interact with their friends, they're going to go up to the doors, everything's going to be wonderful, except that it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't.
Not
and deciding
always.
Maybe 1 or 2 goals that we want to work on, and that it not be tied, like, you know, I have a deal with Jem where every other year I make the costume. One year we buy it and the next year we make it. And I know I get into that thing of, well, I made the costume and I made all these different pieces, and as they start to come off, I'm all bummed out about it. But really, it's not about that. It's really about the 30 seconds that he was happy when he tried it on the week before. That should be enough. And then night of, I need to let go of that expectation that he's going to be all happy. Mom made me this costume.
And
ridiculousness.
And take it in small increments of time. So if he leaves it on for the first 30 minutes, that's great. That would be a success. And maybe the next costume party you have, or the next Halloween, aim for an hour.
Yeah.
You know, look at everything in increments of time. Or houses. How many houses did we go to?
Yeah.
We'll aim for 3 houses this year and see how that goes.
Yeah.
And just look at it that way and work on small goals. We always want to set the child up for success.
Yeah.
And if your child is able to have the certain candies that he's getting, maybe after he goes appropriately to the house, says trick or treat and does everything right, great, go ahead and choose a candy to eat.
Yeah.
You know, which isn't going to work out for a lot of kids, but having some kind of backup reinforcer,
Absolutely.
Or something else
That's a great
along.
idea.
So when your child is, you know, bored, and you before you start seeing these behaviors occurring, tantruming, look for the precursor behaviors. So the things that are happening before the big tantrum. So maybe he's looking kind of bored and not attending, and even walking slower up to the house. Look for those behaviors and try to set up a situation where you can reinforce the correct behavior, not correct, but the behaviors you want to see.
The ones you want to focus on. We got a couple of comments here that I just want to show. That we were talking about the older kids. Somebody said it's all about greed when the kids get older. Got to fill up that pillowcase. Boy, that's the truth. I just want to stay out of their path. That's what I want to do. Somebody else said perhaps having a set number of houses to go to would help a child to know when it's over. As you were saying, that and it's going to be different for every child. Like for one child, it might be we're going to go to 3 houses. For another, it might be we're going to go to 3 houses and take a break and then do 3 more. For somebody else, it could be we're going to do this entire street, but we're going to take breaks along the way of knowing when it's going to be over. And that can help with the kids who can't wait for it to be over and the kids who want it to go on endlessly.
Yes.
Last year, we crossed over for the first time into, he was like, what else are we doing? Let's keep doing this. He was having such a good time. And Dad and I were like, please let it end. Please let it end. Are we done yet? Can we be done now?
This is where visual schedules work out really well too. If you are going to just do a block, make a visual schedule, then have the child practice with the visual schedule.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to go to here, and then to this one, and then back around to this one, and then back home. And that's going to be it. That's our Halloween. So visual schedules, and even taking that with you, if you have a visual schedule that your child can look at after every house, say, okay, now we're here. We're going to go to here next, and then the next one, and oh, look, we're almost done. We'll be done when we get here. But it's setting up those contingencies so your child is successful, knows what to expect, and is not put in a situation where tantrums and behavior problems can happen. And if that does happen, it's okay to go home.
It is okay to go home. It's okay to call it a night and say that's enough, or go to some. It was built in for us that we had to go to separate places on Halloween. So it kind of chunked the night up that we had to go to one friend's house, and we have a tradition of taking pictures there, and we have a tradition of going in our neighborhood and then going to another friend's house where he has other friends to participate, and then the night is over. So it kind of made it, built in that there were different things that we could say, okay, this phase is done. He would have a little bit of downtime in the car going to the next place, which worked really well for my kid. Now, somebody else wrote in and said, I heard that it might snow on trick-or-treat night in Ohio. The weather always brings another list of issues. And isn't it the truth? In some places, there's the possibility it's going to be cold, or it's going to be hot, or it's going to rain, or it'll be windy, or that it could potentially snow. And that brings a whole other sensory set of things, not only for our kids, but for us as well.
Yes.
And some concerns about safety issues and things.
Another thing you want to practice as well is that if there is an occasion where it's leading up to the event and then it snows and you just can't do it, set up an alternative activity. So in the house, maybe set up each room as a different door to knock on, and go in there and you get candy or a treasure hunt or something like that. So set up an alternative activity that will make it so the night is still fun, and maybe invite some other people over to the house to enjoy that as well. But not so there's this great build-up and then all of a sudden it stops.
Yeah. And some places too, the mall has an indoor activity, or different stores will have different things that you can do. I'm just thinking about where my husband works. They have different stations where the kids can go and trick-or-treat at each one of the different stations. So, there are other places besides outdoor, and sometimes, I'm from back east, and even if it snowed, we put on boots and we trick-or-treated. But there was a whole sensory thing, because then your costume gets wet and you get cold. There are different considerations. But I love this idea of not having a big build-up and have it go away, that we always have a contingency plan. And I think for our kids, too, letting our kids know ahead of time, well, here's the plan. We're going to trick-or-treat, but it might be outside and it might be snowing, or it might be this. And, we've talked before about about teaching imagination, that we can pretend. That one of the things that we used to do, not with Halloween, but was we would go to the park and pretend, and I would say, okay, let's pretend that it's raining outside, and we would pretend that we were outside and it was raining, or let's pretend that it's snowing, or let's pretend that we're walking through Jell-O. It's one of the things when we leave Disneyland, when we're walking through the parking lot with all the kids, we'll say, okay, let's pretend that we're walking on eggshells and everybody tiptoes, and then we pretend we're walking through water.
And that's a perfect example, leaving as something fun too. And this is where you'll see a lot of behavior problems occur when, and if the night's over too, if Halloween's over, you're at the last house, it's time to go home, maybe plan something for when you get home.
Yes.
So that actually going back to the house, maybe have a candy counting contest.
Right.
Or let's see how many we have, let's trade, or whatever it is, have some kind of activity at the house.
Yes.
So that going home isn't going to be that big of a deal. It's going to be fun to go home because there are other activities available.
Right. We always watch Charlie Brown when we get home.
Perfect.
And that's when we get to light the pumpkin.
Yep.
So when we finally get home. So things to do. That's a great comment.